Games based on true events. You may already know that there's a lot of games based on real life events, but some games are based on more creepier moments of our human history. You may be shocked, but there's a lot of weird and scary moments that have actually happened in real life and have been referenced in video games. So today, I'm going to take a look at different video games that were inspired by real life events. And the first game that's based on a real life event is Outlast 2. So the game starts with the main character Blake, who's the cameraman for his wife Lynn, an investigative journalist, when suddenly the helicopter ends up crashing. The pilot is found to be skinned alive while Blake's wife has now gone missing. And so throughout the game, you find some of the people in here are not all right.
The devil must love his father. Please, beg him for mercy.
A lot of the people here seem to be cultish. And eventually you meet one of the main villains of the game, Sullivan Knott.
But yours, I'm powerless again.
He's the preacher of this entire cult that he leads, and throughout this entire game, you find out that it's largely based on the Jonestown Massacre of 1978. If you don't know anything about Jonestown, it was an American cult under the leadership of Jim Jones, who was also a mass murderer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, Jonestown was a secluded area. Here are some of the houses in Jonestown. Yet the whole place was promised to dedicate a life for socialism, total economic and racial and social equality. But that's when the people in Jonestown started to realize that this place wasn't alright, and Jim Jones didn't allow people to leave. In fact, Congressman Leo Ryan tried to lead an investigation on Jonestown after allegations of human rights abuses. And after visiting the area, he was actually shot and killed on Jones's orders as he and others attempted to leave Jonestown on November 1978. Luckily, some of Ryan's members were able to survive, but after Jones received word that his security guards failed to kill all of Ryan's party, Jones concluded that the escapees would soon inform the United States of the attack and they would send the military to seize Jonestown. And that's when Jim Jones called in everybody in the town, which is estimated to be around 918 people. He called them in, stating that it was only a matter of time before military commandos descended on their commune and killed them all. And so Jim Jones stated that they should take matters into their own hands and forced everybody around the area to drink a mixture of flavor aid and cyanide. Those who refused to drink were injected with cyanide via syringe. The crowd was also surrounded by armed guards, offering members of the basic dilemma of death by poison or death by a guard's hand. So yeah, they were pretty much forced to take this. Not everybody wanted to listen to Jim Jones at the time. And yes, there was people of all ages, men, women, and children all participated in this tragedy. The entire thing is actually recorded. It's labeled as the death tape where Jim Jones is giving his speech. You can actually hear people crying and shouting. And as the tape further continues, the cries slowly get quieter as everyone ends up dying. And now how does this relate back to Outlast 2? Well, in the game, one of the main antagonists is Sullivan Knott, who very similarly to Jim Jones ends up doing very similar heinous crimes. And spoiler alerts ahead, but it's a pretty old game. Yeah, it's safe to say the game is pretty brutal, and it can show like a lot of the things on here. And even after Sullivan dies, walking out of the area and into the main town, you can see everybody else dead in a very similar manner to the Jonestown Massacre. Yeah, in an interview by Indie Games Level Up, co-founder Morans stated that Outlast 2 was largely based on the Jonestown Massacre of 1978. So yeah, both the game and the whole Jonestown tragedies are both very equally disturbing. Yeah, I played Outlast 2 before, and the game is entirely disturbing, but it's even more disturbing knowing that similar events actually happened in our history. But another popular game that's based on real life events is Granny. Yes, I'm talking about this cheesy looking game here. Yeah, it's actually based on a real life killer Granny. The entire game has you walking around Granny's and sometimes even Grandpa's house where you try to escape them and the house itself. It's a horror-like puzzle game that has very cheesy but effective jump scares, and a lot of people reference this game to be based off of Tamara Samsonova, who's known as the Granny Ripper and Baba Yaga. Yet she was the killer who was arrested on July 2015 on suspicion of committing 2 murders with extreme cruelty. And so how did these killings happen? Well, after her husband's disappearance, wonder how that happened, she began renting out a room in her apartment. So kind of like the Granny game, you had to escape her place. Yet so the Granny Ripper ended up killing her tenant and disposed of his body in the streets. And the Wikipedia is pretty descriptive on some of her killings, but eventually police officers found traces of blood in her bathroom, after which she was immediately arrested. Now, what's crazy about this entire thing is there's actually footage of her carrying one of her victims. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you what's inside the pot because it's pretty disturbing, but it's actually crazy that we have footage of this. Yeah, police even found a diary in which she kept, which describes how she killed her tenant and what she ended up doing with it. Again, I'm not gonna go into detail about it because it's pretty disturbing. Yeah, no, this whole Granny thing just gives me the creeps. It's kind of up in the air if the creator of the game actually drew inspiration off of this grandma killer killer or if it's all just one big coincidence. But another creepy game that's also equally creepy because it's based on real life is Resident Evil 8 Village. Now, the game has werewolves, monsters, and even vampires, and while everybody was simping over Lady Dimitrescu, I mean myself included because duh, a lot of people didn't realize that she's actually based off of a real person, and that person is Elizabeth Báthory. She was born in the year 1560, and she was a Hungarian noblewoman and alleged killer. Yeah, it says here that Báthory and 4 of her servants were accused of torturing and killing hundreds of girls and women from the years 1590 to 1610. Yeah, there's legends describing her vampiric tendencies, such as a tale that she bathed in blood to retain her youth. And again, this is just legends slash folklore, so it's more than likely just made up. But a lot of people say that she inspired the 1897 Dracula novel. Yeah, even in the Wikipedia page, people would title her as the Bloody Countess. Yeah, after she was caught, her servants were put on trial and convicted, whereas Báthory was imprisoned within the castle of, I don't know how to say that word, where she died under mysterious circumstances. And under what charges were against Báthory? Well, several historians say that it was witch hunt, with testimony from more than 300 individuals. Yeah, again, she imprisoned a lot of women and killed hundreds more of them. She's very psychotic. And again, this game, Resident Evil 8, has some inspirations of her. I mean, I don't think she could turn into this monster here, but you know, the whole psychopathic tendencies still remain. Yeah, Resident Evil 8 takes a lot of inspiration from the medieval times. I mean, majority of the game takes place in this castle here on the right, which is actually based on a real castle known as the Castello Pelèche, which is a neo-Renaissance palace that is near the medieval route linking route to Transylvania. Honestly, pretty interesting facts to know about this game, and also about real life history. Now, this next game literally takes place in the replica of H.H. Holmes' Murder Castle, and that game is The Devil in Me. If you don't know who H.H. Holmes is, well, he's considered to be America's first serial killer. And yes, he had a very weird castle where he supposedly committed all his murders. In the game though, you play as 5 different protagonists as they're wrapping up filming for their documentary on H.H. Holmes when they suddenly get invited to a replica of his castle, and then things take turn for the worse. The game features a lot of supposed traps that H.H. Holmes used, and there's been claims that the structure contained secrets such as torture chambers, trapdoors, gas chambers, and a basement crematorium. None of these claims ended up being true though. Yeah, H.H. Holmes was also known to be a huge con man who often lied about everything, so a lot of his killings could be fabricated. According to his Wikipedia page though, he has 1 confirmed kill, but the total count ranges from 20 people to even killing 200 people. Again, it's kind of hard to tell what the truth is with him, like even if his murder castle is actually a castle where he tortured people, but The Devil in Me video game does play off of the idea as if the murder castle was actually true. The entire game is very gruesome, but also very fascinating in how it takes our human history into an actual horror game. But what's a scary game that you've played that was actually based on a real life story? Let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, if you guys like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.